In the early 20th century, the world lived in quiet terror of infections that today we barely notice. A simple cut, a tooth pulled badly, a scraped knee on a cobblestone street. Any of these could spiral into a raging fever and death within days. Hospitals were places where people went not always to heal, but often to die, their bodies overwhelmed by invisible armies of bacteria. Surgeons washed their hands and crossed their fingers, because once infection set in, medicine had almost nothing left to offer. Soldiers in the First World War died not only from bullets and shells, but from the wounds that followed, festering, gangrenous, unstoppable. The germ theory of disease had been proven for decades, yet knowing what was killing people did nothing to stop it. Humanity desperately needed a weapon against the microscopic world, but no one yet knew where to find it. Doctors and scientists across Europe were racing to find what German physician Paul Ehrlich called a magic bullet, a substance that could kill bacteria inside the human body without killing the patient along with it. Ehrlich himself found one answer in 1909, a toxic arsenic compound called salvarsan that could treat syphilis, but it was dangerous, painful to administer, and useless against most other infections. The search for something broader, safer, and more powerful consumed laboratories from London to Paris to Berlin. Bacterial cultures sat in petri dishes across the world's great universities, while scientists stared at them, prodding them with chemicals, hoping for something, anything, that might tip the balance. Each failed experiment was met with the same grim conclusion. Bacteria were remarkably difficult to kill without doing equal harm to human cells. The problem was not a lack of effort or intelligence. It was that nature seemed to have built no obvious door through which medicine could pass. And yet, somewhere in the natural world, the answer had already existed for millions of years. Alexander Fleming was born in 1881 on a remote farm in Lochfield, Scotland, the seventh of 8 children raised on rough moorland, where nature was everywhere and science was a distant dream. He walked 4 miles to school each morning across the Scottish hills, developing a quiet, observational temperament that would define his entire career. At 20, he came to London almost by accident. An uncle left him a small inheritance, and he enrolled in St. Mary's Hospital Medical School, where he would spend nearly his entire professional life. Fleming was not a flamboyant genius. He was methodical, laconic, and deeply attentive to small, unexpected things. During the First World War, he served as a military doctor in France, watching young men die of infected wounds and filing the experience away with quiet fury. Back in London at St. Mary's, he worked under the immunologist Almroth Wright, developing an almost obsessive interest in the body's natural defenses against bacteria. He was a man built by patience and observation, and the universe, it seemed, was preparing the right moment to reward him. In September 1928, Fleming returned to his laboratory at St. Mary's after a 2-week holiday, ready to sort through a stack of petri dishes he had left piled on a bench before leaving. Most were unremarkable, cultures of Staphylococcus bacteria growing exactly as expected. But one dish stopped him cold. A patch of blue-green mold had contaminated the plate, and surrounding it was a ring of clear bacteria-free space, as if something the mold was producing had silently dissolved the bacteria all around it. Any other scientist might have cursed the contamination and thrown the dish away. Fleming looked closer. He would later say, simply, "That's funny," 3 of the most consequential words in the history of medicine. The mold was identified as Penicillium notatum, a spore that had drifted up from a colleague's laboratory 1 floor below. Fleming isolated its active secretion, called it Penicillin, and published his findings in 1929. But the world for a long time would not listen. Before we continue this journey through one of history's most remarkable minds, I'd like to invite you to support the channel. If you enjoy thoughtful stories that explore the lives and ideas that shaped our world, please consider liking this video and subscribing. Your support helps these stories reach more curious minds. Fleming published his paper on penicillin in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology in June 1929, describing clearly how the mold secretion killed a wide range of dangerous bacteria. The response from the scientific community was almost entirely silence. The problem was practical. Penicillin was extraordinarily difficult to isolate in stable, usable quantities, and Fleming himself lacked the chemistry expertise to purify it properly. He demonstrated it to colleagues, used it occasionally as a surface antiseptic in the lab, but could not make it into a medicine. For a decade, his paper gathered dust, cited almost nowhere, while millions of people continued to die from bacterial infections that penicillin might have cured. Fleming never stopped believing in what he had seen, but without the chemical tools to take the next step, he was trapped. It would take a war, a pair of brilliant chemists at Oxford, and the most urgent medical need in history to finally drag penicillin out of obscurity and into the world. In 1939, at Oxford University, Australian pharmacologist Howard Florey and German-Jewish refugee biochemist Ernst Boris Chain came across Fleming's forgotten paper and immediately saw what others had missed. Together, they assembled a small, underfunded team and set about solving the chemical puzzle Fleming could not: how to extract and purify penicillin in sufficient quantities to test as a medicine. Working with bedpans, milk churns, and whatever equipment they could scavenge, they produced enough crude penicillin by 1940 to run the first decisive animal experiment. 8 mice were given lethal doses of streptococcus, and 4 were treated with penicillin. All 4 treated mice survived. The other 4 were dead by morning. In February 1941, they administered penicillin to a human being for the first time, a policeman named Albert Alexander, dying from a severe infection, and watched in astonishment as he began to recover almost immediately. When their limited supply ran out and Alexander eventually died, the team was more convinced than ever. They had to produce more, far more, and quickly. The world was at war, and soldiers were dying of exactly the wounds penicillin could cure. With World War II raging and Allied casualties mounting, Florey flew to the United States in 1941 to enlist the industrial might of American pharmaceutical companies in mass-producing penicillin. What had taken his Oxford team months to produce in thimble-sized quantities, American firms like Pfizer would soon be manufacturing by the hundreds of millions of doses. The U.S. government declared penicillin production a top wartime priority, second only to the Manhattan Project in scientific urgency. By D-Day in June 1944, enough penicillin existed to treat every Allied soldier wounded in the Normandy invasion, a logistical miracle that would have been unthinkable just 3 years earlier. Death rates from infected wounds, which had been catastrophic in every previous war in history, plummeted to near zero. Soldiers who would certainly have died from gas gangrene, septicemia, or pneumonia were walking out of field hospitals within days. The mold from a forgotten petri dish in a London laboratory had become the most powerful weapon medicine had ever deployed. In 1945, Alexander Fleming, Howard Florey, and Ernst Boris Chain were jointly awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, one of the most universally celebrated Nobel honors ever given, for a discovery that had already saved hundreds of thousands of lives and would go on to save hundreds of millions more. Fleming became a global celebrity almost overnight, showered with honorary degrees, civic parades, and audiences with heads of state, yet he remained characteristically modest, insisting that the mold had done all the work. Penicillin launched the entire age of antibiotics, a revolution that would produce dozens of new drugs and fundamentally alter humanity's relationship with infectious disease. Tuberculosis, syphilis, scarlet fever, meningitis, and countless infections that had stalked humanity since the beginning of civilization were suddenly treatable, curable, manageable. Average human life expectancy in the developed world leaped by a decade in just a generation, a change unmatched by almost any other single medical development. And it all began with a scientist who came back from holiday, looked at a ruined petri dish, and, instead of throwing it away, simply looked closer. The discovery of penicillin is not just a story about medicine. It is a story about what curiosity, patience, and a refusal to dismiss the unexpected can give to the world. Thank you for spending this time exploring one of history's most remarkable stories. The story of the discovery of penicillin reminds us that curiosity, persistence, and courage can reshape the world. If you found this journey meaningful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to Say It Right. It helps us continue telling thoughtful stories that inspire curiosity and understanding.